We are brought to you by Boss Bears Supplements. That's Boss Bears Supplements at bossbears.co. Hard work, consistency, and determination are difficult to sustain when your mind and body can't keep up. Fuel your body with what it needs to perform like a boss. Whether you're closing deals, pitching a new business idea, or training in the gym, Boss Bears take your hustle to the next level. Our ingredients are the highest quality with potency and serving sizes that are the gold standard in the industry. Check out all of Boss Bears products at bossbears.co. They have apple cider vinegar gummies. They have ashwagandha. They have all kinds of supplements in delicious gummy form. They also have them in pill form if you don't want the gummies. I prefer the gummies. They are delicious, and I've tried the apple cider vinegar. They are very good. Use code Nicky at checkout to save 10%. That's bossbears.co, code Nicky. We are brought to you by Clout Power Supplements. That's KLOUTPWR.com. So here I have the protein, the Cravings protein from Clout. This one is the salted caramel. This is some of the best protein that I've ever had in my life. It's actually delicious. I like the salted caramel and the cinnamon swirl are my two favorites. Also, their pre-workouts are amazing. So they have the Karma Nootropic pre-workout. It's a nootropic and focused pre-workout. It's a lower stimulant formula, zero itch formula. It has 4 trademark ingredients, and has fully dosed ingredients. So far, the Arctic Cherry is probably my favorite of the Karma pre-workout. Also, try the Nero Aminos from them. And also the High Stimulant Mamba is some of my favorite too. And I really like the Arctic Cherry of that one. So go to cloutpower.com and use code Nicky to save 15%. KLOUTPWR.com. Code Nicky to save 15%. Everybody, welcome to the Nicky Free Podcast. We are here with Sonia Spil, who is a coach and hormone specialist, correct?
I am, yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Like, first of all, start with what got you into coaching? And you're certified in everything I saw, like
I'm
NASM
certified
and
in everything.
all kinds of stuff.
Have lots of letters and all sorts of stuff to go by. I started coaching. I actually spent a good 15 years in a massive drug addiction. And when I came out of it, I really found myself passionate about like fitness. It was kind of like my place to go. A lot of people who are getting sober will lean like into the gym in a way.
You have to have something, right? I've
you
noticed
have to have
that.
Something, yeah.
That's a big thing.
Huge. And most bodybuilders are a little bit obsessive, a little bit compulsive, a little bit,
Right.
we have that like fine line of being super driven, slightly like addicted to what we're doing. So it was
100%.
the perfect transition. And I really just began like bro fitness, that very basic kind of like bro science, if you will.
Oh, totally.
Pound and pre-workout, just all the things.
So when you started, you were doing basically like bro splits, just like pound and pre-workout, just hitting it hard.
Yeah. 10 grams of creatine and
addicted to going every day.
every day, and doing cardio before.
So probably overtraining.
Overtraining, fasted stuff, just all sorts of like, you know how it is.
And so you probably weren't getting the results that you actually wanted.
So I think I had a lot of newbie gains in the beginning,
Okay.
something
Yeah.
about like coming out of a 15-year meth addiction, like you just get I was strong.
Your body's like, oh my God, any calories you give me, I'm going to turn into muscle.
Calories, yeah. It was like, Quest bars were really big back then, so it was like remember how big Quest bars were? They were so big. And
I have to be careful with like protein bars and
they'll
stuff.
They'll fuck your gut up.
Because I know.
Yeah.
They do. Like I'll have right now I have like no cheat days because I'm getting really close to the Emerald Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm just like really on my diet and I don't want to do anything off of it. But there was a time where like my cheat day, like I would still like kind of want to be healthy. So I would go get like protein bars and stuff, but they make your gut feel like terrible.
They do. When I was pregnant, I like found myself in the kitchen and I like melted 4 Quest bars together. I like ate it with a spoon. First, I was already pregnant, so you're already kind of like digestion issues, and then I was wrecked from those bars for like 3 days.
Oh yeah, they'll mess you up.
It was bad, yeah. So yeah, I got into fitness pretty much then. But I've always been, for as long as I can remember, anyone who knows what I'm doing now, who's known me back then, is like, oh yeah, that's absolutely your line of work. Because I've always been a super nerd and always been super sciencey. So even like in high school, I was like, I'd only go to one class, and that was like science or biology. Like that was it. I was always like, I knew chemicals and I understood like the breakdown of molecules. It's always been my forte.
What fascinates you about science then?
You know, I just feel like there's like that little meme where the guy's like, science, you know, and it's like a big rainbow. That's kind of how I feel. I just think
it's like magic.
It's kind of like magic. I'm basically a magician.
Yeah.
A doctor, a magician.
I think science is fascinating too. Like those were my favorite like books growing up, or like
absolutely. And the human body is the biggest science experiment. Like really, I mean, we're just constantly trying new things. And the more that we become educated, like as a whole, like the more research that we do on not just like gen pop populations, but on bodybuilders or like performance athletes, the bigger it becomes, right? Like we're looking at something greater than just what is a 40-year-old diabetic, how does their body respond, which is really the population margin that most research is done on. So when we read this research, it's like, it's very seldom women. Yeah. Because...
So you're talking about, in general, most of the, like, general population research is based on that demographic right now.
Yes, because it's no one cares that the healthy bodybuilder wants to get even more shredded.
That's kind of like when you do BMI and they would say, like, we're probably obese.
100%.
Like me and your boyfriend who's sitting here off camera, like, we would probably be considered obese.
Yeah.
But really, we're a healthy body mass index. It's just that we have muscle.
Yeah. And it's just, in general, that's why we have some of those, like, mis-skewed numbers, is because the research is done on that. And then, again, very few studies are actually done with women because we have a cycle. So we can't... We're changing. I'm sure you guys know our moods change a lot, but we're literally changing in hormones 4 different times in our cycle, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing research and you're having that many fluctuations with 28, 30 women, that's not going to be accurate research. So we're not tested on. So it's kind of like as women and then as like physique athletes, that's two populations right there that research doesn't necessarily not apply to, but it isn't formed around, if that makes sense.
So then where do you go to find good research? What have you had to do to find stuff that works for you?
I mean, I think that one of the best places to find research is PubMed or Google Scholars, honestly. But you have to know how to read research, right? So it's kind of like, now we got to back out a little bit because it's really hard when you pull up a study.
If you're not like a doctor or scientist, it's probably really hard to read research, right?
I've been reading research for 5 or 6 years, like really reading research. And even now there's times that I'm like, I'm looking up, just to read one piece of research, it might take me all day because I'm looking up different things. And then there's rabbit holes, of course, because now I'm trying to figure out, well, how was the study done? And then how is it applicable? You can read kind of like a cliff notes of research, which is always a little bit easier to understand. But then really understanding, again, that just because the research says it doesn't mean it's true. Who's the population?
Right.
That it's applicable to.
So where was the data collected from?
Who was the study done on?
Was the data biased at all? You know, like it depends.
Because of the realm of like functional coaching that I do, and we'll kind of dive into more of what that is, I always have to ask myself, like, who was this research done on? Because it's going to be very different if it's somebody who's training 5-6 days a week, who's eating very low calories, right? Versus somebody who's overeating. Right. That's also very different.
That is true, because like that's I always think that with there's a lot of research on like vegan versus non-vegan right now, but like a lot of times they're getting the population from like people that are eating McDonald's 100%, and shit. So it's 100%. Like, is the meat actually bad? Is the meat causing it, or is it the American diet?
And is it what's in it? So like any nitrate-filled meat, nitrates are a known carcinogenic. So it's not that the meat is necessarily causing it; it's the nitrates inside of the meat.
Are you getting like healthy grass-fed meat that's never had like anything? Yeah, that's what I. So that's an interesting. So that would go to your. Idea that you have to be careful where the stat is, like what populations is getting.
And the hardest thing is that most people looking for that, they are looking for answers. Nobody feels super healthy and goes, I'm going to read research on dieting, or I'm going to try this extreme diet just because. I mean, there are those like random like Huberman guys that are like, I'm just going to experiment on this.
Dude, I love that guy's podcast. It's so great. Yeah.
Hours of Huberman. I'm like, I'm going for a walk and learning about neuroscience. But he is like a great example of like one one certain type of person that will try that. But
Yeah.
most people who are looking for this, they're looking for answers because they're unhappy with the way they're feeling. They're looking, their results are in the gym or something of the
Something's
sort.
not going the way they want it
Yeah.
to, so they're trying to find an answer.
Yes. I always say most of the time when someone gets to me, they've been through multiple coaches.
And they've tried
and they've been
things.
through multiple doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many people do you kind of help right now? Do you have a lot of clients?
I want to say I have, I don't know exactly the number on my roster right now.
Is it majority women, or do you have men and women?
I have majority women. The men I have are mostly competitor men
Okay.
that have come out or damaged themselves with competing.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of women. That's a lot of my population. I'm a real mama bird.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think that I think honestly it's kind of hard at first for a man to get around the idea of a female coaching them.
Yeah.
It's just different.
There's still some, yeah.
Even honestly, when I came into the industry as a coach and I was talking to my friend Jason Theobald, who is a very, very well-known bodybuilding coach, that when we meaning me and Meredith and Sarah, who I have my podcast with, when we came in as females in the coaching industry, there was like one dominant female coach.
Yeah.
Lauren Conlon, and she, again, mostly just coached females.
Right.
Now we have more women coaching because I think that females are starting to want to be coached by a woman.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit different. We're a little bit more like, it's just a little bit different.
That kind of makes sense, right? I mean, you're going to know things that men can't know.
Things, and also, like, I think that in the realm of functional healing and functional medicine, there's a lot of trauma and there's a lot of, like, needing to please.
Yeah.
That comes down from, like, perfectionism, the need to please, the need to be right, the need to be recognized. A lot of this comes from competitors.
Right.
That's it. That's a lot of what it's, like rooted in. And I think sometimes when we have another male figure that we feel like we have to live up to and be perfect for, it's another stressor at times. It's like, I need to be perfect. I need to be proud. I need to be this. I need to be that. And
Yeah.
it can add a little bit of an extra, like,
So
stress.
it's another unrealistic thing that you're trying to live up to.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a natural instinct to try to live up to this.
Yeah.
Whatever kind of coach figure or, yeah.
Yeah, and I do think my clients always want to live up to my expectations of them, and we talk about realistic expectations and then what I really do expect for them as a coach, because that's also very important to understand what are realistic expectations.
Right.
But I think the industry is definitely changing, but I think that there's still room for growth, and I think that as there's more education out there that is good education, good courses that coaches can go take to further their education, we're going to have a better industry as a whole.
It seems like it is getting better, like scientifically, right?
Yeah, I remember, it's so funny because I remember 4 years ago being like, you guys should be doing blood work if you're running PEDs. You guys should be doing blood work if you're running
100%.
PEDs. And everyone thought it was fucking crazy. And now
That's
everyone's doing blood work.
That seems crazy to me that people, like, the only reason I can think of not running blood work is because you're poor. You know, it's like,
yeah, it's
you know
absolutely
what I mean? Like,
necessary.
If it's like, if you have money, like, I would be doing it all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's honestly, like, it's a vital sign.
Yeah.
Your labs are a vital sign, and if you are using,
especially if you're using PEDs.
PEDs, exactly. And even if you're not necessarily using PEDs, if you're a competitor in the lifestyle, even as a natural athlete, even more important, because
if you're
now
natural
you're
and you're tanking your calories that low, like when you're getting towards the show, you got to be doing some damage.
Exactly.
Too, you know, like,
yeah.
So there are some good companies out there right now, right? That pretty affordable
for labs.
Yeah.
Life Extension's a really good one that I will have if somebody is not working with me. I'm an ordering practitioner, so I order labs for my clients.
Right.
But if somebody's not working with me, Life Extension is a really good one. Unit Labs is another good one.
Right.
Those are the two that I'll normally recommend. The metabolic weight loss panel from Life Extension is normally the most, like, robust.
Yeah.
You're looking at things like CMP, CBC. You're looking at things like insulin, things that matter a lot more when you're actually trying to lose weight.
I had mine done recently, and the only bad marker was high creatinine.
Yeah,
which is like, duh, because I'm taking. What's that?
Did you train the day before?
Well, I mean, definitely.
So that'll absolutely do that.
And so plus I'm taking, like, pre-workout every day before I lift, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
it makes total sense, you know, like.
It can sometimes do that. It would, like, so The markers, so you never want to do labs. We can talk about like when the ideal time is for a
Right.
bodybuilder to do labs too, because
Well, it said probably high level of muscle mass and like
Yeah.
creatine supplements would affect that.
yeah, it's so, and that's a breakdown of muscle basically in urine too. You'll see
Right.
that in your bun. You never want to train for the 2 days prior to going to get labs. You want to be
Okay.
well hydrated. You want to be fasted. You want to
It's
go
gonna
first thing in the
affect it.
morning. It's going to affect all of those things. And if you can't make the time for that, just know that those labs are going to be inaccurate.
Messed up.
And
Okay.
then the other thing to keep in mind is that where you are as far as high and low for a medical diagnosis is looking for disease.
Right.
Where you are for being optimal is even more inside that. So what you'll see with testosterone, for example, it'll say 250 to 800.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty fucking big margin, to be
Right.
honest with you.
So what's optimal?
well, optimal
Like
is
for a
going.
male.
So it really just depends, right? We say something between like 500 and 700 is really optimal for a
Yeah,
male.
yeah.
Something in there.
Right.
And normally when you're going over, now you're trying to mitigate estrogen symptoms. So remember,
Right.
perfect health when it comes to sex hormones for a man is a balance between both testosterone and estrogen.
yeah.
And you need estrogen. And what you see a lot in competitors is they fucking tank their estrogen and they're not keeping in mind that that has so much to do with muscle mass,
So they're
recovery,
on like
everything.
PEDs and then take stuff that blocks estrogen
Yeah,
receptors.
yep. So
and
now
then-
the ratio's off. So somebody might say, oh, somebody has 45 estrogen. Well, if their testosterone is more than 1,500, it's off the charts, that may not actually be that bad.
Right.
It's about that ratio. So if somebody has
Yeah.
435, now we're talking about an estrogen dominance issue.
Okay.
Then it would need to be addressed.
And same with females, right? I mean, people always have this idea that females don't have testosterone, but they clearly do as well, right? I mean,
God, if
And
I
it's
had
like a
$1 for
very-
every
it's-
dumb doctor that said, he's laughing right now because I get off the phone sometimes with people and I feel honestly really sad.
Yeah.
I feel so sad because I'm a high ticket coach and I can't imagine what it's like to go. I mean, like we've all done it. I've gone through so many doctors prior to being a coach, not knowing what was going on. And like literally the things that I hear are mind blowing. Like,
Oh, yeah,
you don't have
yeah.
a sex drive. Just change positions. Like, it doesn't hurts when you have sex, change positions. It's like, that's clearly a hormonal dysfunction. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not about that. But women need testosterone and estrogen. Now, the only difference is testosterone is not our vitality.
right.
Estrogen is our vitality. For women, estrogen is our sex drive. That's our like vitality. That's our glowy skin. That's our hair. That's our muscle mass growth.
Right.
And that's our recovery. It is it's our powerhouse. And then we need testosterone to balance that out.
But so go back to doctors a little bit. So like,
Yeah.
because that's what I always tell people is, I feel like there's some kind of magic thing we do with where somebody's a doctor and we just like have this like imaginary trust that they just know everything, but they're still
Yeah.
human beings. So like, it always bothers me when people are like, it's like, I mean, I definitely think it's great we have doctors. It's great we have the medical industry, but like, I mean, most of it's about making money for them.
Yeah.
Most of it's about selling pharmaceuticals. And then these are just human beings and they're not always
Yeah.
they might be specified in what they know and like they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to health or fitness.
So that's exactly a really good point. I honestly believe I went through a time in my life where I was like, fuck these people.
Right.
But now I think
Well, there's good doctors
these people
too. I
really
mean-
think that they're helping, but they also see what I see too, which
Mm-hmm.
is not everyone wants to change. Not
Right.
everyone wants to take the lifestyle changes. So I have a client who is an OBGYN and she
So they're
said,
trying to help with medication.
they're
'cause
trying
they
to help
know,
with medication
yeah.
because they'll literally say, okay, exercise 4 times a week and change your diet, come back to me in 4 weeks. And they haven't. They just say, doctor, can I take a pill?
They'd rather just have the
They'd
pill
rather
than-
just take a
than
pill.
put in the
So
work.
what
Okay.
happens? The doctor honestly just becomes so
They wanna
used to
help.
doing that. They don't know when a person's honestly looking for help or not. And
Right.
they don't necessarily have the capacity. I'm a coach. Every single week and then multiple times in the week, I'm talking to my clients.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going through this. What does lifestyle look like? What's your heart rate look like? What does your period look like? What does stress look like? What do your bowels look like? What's your food intake look like? I'm looking at so much biofeedback before I make any changes to a program. A doctor doesn't have the capacity to do that.
No.
And think about how much they would charge
Think
if
how
they did.
like fast you're in. You're in there for what, like 10 minutes. You tell them something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
you're working with your
absolutely.
clients, you get an idea of each one of them over a period of time.
Exactly.
So-
And you see things that are missed because a doctor, like you said, is normally niched down into one thing. You have a rheumatologist, that's going to be autoimmune disorders. You have an endocrinologist, that's going to be thyroid, that's going to be hormones. And then you have a regular general practitioner. So what you'll hear, what I just heard yesterday too, I have a client who's dealing with both autoimmune and hormonal dysfunction. And her GP was like, I can't help you. You're now going to go have to see 2 different people.
Yeah.
Because I'm not allowed to give you one prescription that I'm allowed to write.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really familiar with it, which is progesterone, which is a pro hormone. So it's kind of like, I think doctors are so like, oh, I don't know anything about that. Go see a specialist. Not keeping in mind that there's a human being that's now waiting 12 weeks, 5 weeks to get in with that specialist.
Yeah.
That specialist says something. Now this other specialist says something else.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, probably.
I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not going to sneeze.
Okay. That's all right.
I am, but I'm not.
No, it's like, yeah, so you're so into the science stuff that it must, like, when you have clients, your brain must go like 100 different directions at all times, huh?
Yeah, I think it's really, I have to like really think about basics when I have a client, because I have a lot of very, like I said, like I have everyone from like, right now I have an amazing, she's like a pro bodybuilder, women's pro bodybuilder. She's
Yeah.
amazing. She has 7 or 8 different autoimmune diseases.
Oh, boy.
Including like recent hospitalizations for like muscle tissue, connective tissue diseases. So like I have someone who's like that person. And then I have somebody who's also like trying to get pregnant for the first time and like has PCOS. So I have so many different types of people. But the one thing that's true to everything is that there are certain systems inside of the body that are all communicating.
Yep.
That's your HPA axis. It's your hypothalamus, adrenals, and pituitary. So your pituitary is in your brain, or your hypothalamus is in the brain. Your pituitary is just right up above like that soft spot, like right if you push your tongue at the roof of your mouth, that's your pituitary.
Right.
That now signals to your adrenals. And then you also have the HPT axis, which is your thyroid. So that's your brain's communication to adrenals. As a competitor, just as a competitor alone, when you're dieting, that communication signal to your adrenals starts to regulate everything from water, sweating. You know how, I'm feeling more stressed. I'm not sweating as much.
Yeah.
Water load. Why am I holding water around my show? Like all the dysregulations that come through that. Aldosterone. All the regulations of electrolytes inside of your body are like controlled by your adrenals. Your stress hormones. Cortisol is controlled by your stress hormones.
Right.
If your cortisol goes up, your testosterone will naturally go down.
Yeah.
Your digestion slows down. There's not blood flow to your digestion. Now food is sitting heavy. Now you're gassy with all the foods that you're eating. So you're competing and now you're having stomach issues. You're stressed. Now your sex drive is tanked. You're holding water. It's like all the things that as a competitor, everyone is dealing with at some point or form inside of their competition.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It is. And it's like that's just one simple process, and there's not a single person that doesn't affect when it starts to go awry.
God, no wonder you love Huberman Lab podcast. Like that's like all the stuff he focuses on all the time.
Yeah. And there's really advanced testing that gives us a really good look at what exactly is going on far beyond blood, because there's what you have in your serum labs, which is blood labs, and then there's what you actually like have coming out of your body, like what you're metabolizing, and those can be 2 totally different amounts.
Right.
So you can see serum labs, for example, on Asian males. This is really common with Asian males that are low testosterone, but in urine metabolites, they're high testosterone. It's just weird. It's free floating. And then you have like, is it bound up estrogen? Is it or bound up testosterone? Is it usable testosterone? There's so many different factors when looking at labs that come into play to knowing if somebody's optimal to build, optimal to cut, optimal to get pregnant, optimal for like this person's going through massive inflammation. So it's kind of like knowing the systems of the body and making them very simple and being like, okay, we have the adrenals, we have the gut, we have the thyroid. We've got 3 systems right here. And if we work those 3 systems, I don't care what problem it is, you will have resolve.
So because it's so complex, you have to like keep it simple to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes I like write a program and I'm like, okay, this is like 5 pages, and I'll go through and take out paragraphs because I'm like, I'm teaching right now to somebody and this feels overwhelming, you know?
Yeah.
And then I have clients that are like, well, why are we doing this? Well, tell me more. And then I get to go a little bit more balls to the wall.
In depth, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But simplifying definitely helps, right? I mean,
yeah, I think it's really important. I just actually, my co-coach Austin that I work with, he said today something about showing yourself as a coach with big words isn't really showing yourself.
Right.
It's literally making it seem like it's so advanced that you're the only person that has the answers. And that's doing a disservice to most people because then they think, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I need this complex answer.
Like the real quality would be actually like layman's terms.
How simple can I make this?
Yeah.
What is methylation? We hear this word methylation. It's basically passing a baton around the body. Are you over-methylating, under-methylating? When somebody has chronic anxiety, that stuff comes into play.
Yeah.
So like it's about having the ability to make things very simple about what is going on inside of the human body and then communicate that so your client has buy-in to the process. That's where results start to happen. That's when healing starts to happen. Because if a person thinks they don't understand what's going on, healing is only going to go so far. You might have them a month or two in, and at that month 3, they're going to give up.
Because it's so overwhelming.
It can be really overwhelming, yeah, and you don't know what's going on.
Okay. So if a new client comes to you, what does like the procedure look like when you...
Okay, so what kind of thing does this new client have? Give me like a person.
Let's say it's like somebody that's been dieting and they feel like they've been doing all the right things, but for some reason they just can't seem to start losing weight.
Yeah. So one of the first things I'll do, I normally do like to get a good idea, very simple questions. Is this person on birth control? That's a very simple, low-hanging fruit. We talked about estrogen being our metabolism.
So what does birth control do?
It suppresses all our sex hormones.
Okay.
It suppresses testosterone. It
Yep.
binds up testosterone. So imagine that testosterone, you have 100 pennies in your pocket, and we want to use those pennies. And we put them on the table. Well, there's a process where they get bound up. So basically, they get glued to the table. And then you can't use those pennies anymore.
Okay.
If those are glued down pennies, you might have 100 of them, but you ain't paying but more than 20 of them.
Okay.
So if it's bound up, which birth control has, it's called sex hormone binding globulin. No one's going to remember that.
No, I've heard that before.
Yeah, okay. But what does it do? We don't know. It's a mystery. So that's what it does. It glues your pennies down, and now your pennies aren't usable. So now birth control glues many pennies down, so we're low in testosterone, even though we might be normal in serum levels. It lowers estrogen and it lowers progesterone. So we have now anxiety.
So would you maybe suggest they get off?
I am not a very big advocate of birth control. The studies on birth control.
It messes women up. Like,
God, from like, my generation is just so fucked.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
they put you on it at what age? Like
12,
little girls.
13, 14. Everybody I know is on birth control, even if they weren't having sex. Because we got birth control for acne, birth control for heavy periods, birth control for anxiety, birth control because birth control.
That's one of those things, again, where I feel like it's like the pharmaceutical company just likes to push this thing.
It's so... I love seeing this movement of women not being on birth control.
Yeah.
Like, it's so sexy to me. I'm like, fuck yes. Because...
And there's so many different forms of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so is there a difference?
So many.
Like,
and guys are like, why are you so crazy? It's like,
is there a difference?
Because you fucked our hormones up for 20 years.
So, like, what about those ones where they put the thing in the arm? Is that different?
All of them.
Like,
any of them are going to work in the same pathway.
So
the
it's
only
all
thing
the
that's
same
not
type of thing.
hormonal is going to be copper.
Yeah.
Copper is a non-hormonal, but it still has its pros and cons, right? And again, it's not necessarily that birth control is bad, but we talk about the perfect storm, right? If a person is not losing weight, that's the first thing I look at. They're normally also dealing with stress.
Right.
Now, birth control lowers progesterone, which is our calming hormone.
Okay.
If you can't settle the body down because you don't have progesterone,
yeah.
then now a person is dealing with massive anxiety and or depression, which if you Google the studies of depression, suicide, and birth control, they are alarming, and it's crazy that they are now.
So then do they go to the doctor and they just give them like antidepressants on top of that?
So this is exactly the epidemic that we're seeing right now. And it's fucking, like I said, it's so sad because it's literally like, and we're overworked. These are, I mean, like...
So high-level stress all the time.
High-level stress all the time. We're constantly stimulated. We're on screens all the time. We're not getting sleep. And it's like, it's being driven down.
So like the quick dopamine to the screen on top of that. Oh,
all
man.
of it. All of it. We're looking for all of it. We're looking to feel. We're looking to... And then again, comparison. Women, now we're under-eating in the perfect storm, right? We don't have estrogen to protect our muscle.
Right, because you got Instagram, so you got all these super hot models.
And everything is like HIIT training, Orange Theory, more cardio, fasted cardio. So now... We don't have estrogen to protect us. Like this is a birth control scenario. And now we're losing muscle every time we go and do that. So what are we gaining? Body fat.
Well, and that's the weird thing too, because then you'll see like when women do start with a really good coach.
Yeah.
And they like start doing, maybe training for competitions or something, they'll be so surprised at how much they get to eat. and then they start actually building muscle and looking leaner and feeling better. And they're like, I never knew I could do that. And like some of them have eating disorders, and then they start with a coach and they're like, oh my God, I'm eating like Rice Krispie treats and lots of carbs.
It was
and
mind blowing to me. When I started working
you know,
with a coach,
like,
I was like, literally like, it's funny because I always joke around that when I met him, he was just White Claws and Harleys, right? And I was like, perfect, you look like a good match for me. I was like,
hey,
I was in the
White
gym.
Claws,
you know?
baby.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was like, I'm like a bro, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
I'm a bro, you know? And I'd be like, with Rice Krispie treats in my pockets at the gym, like pulling out snacks.
Oh,
and he was
they're
like,
the
what are you
best.
doing? You can't do that. And I'm like, no, this is like, Rice Krispie treats are magic. If you don't know,
I was gonna say, if you're, are you pro Rice Krispies? Because I really am.
Yeah, I'm pro easily digestible carbohydrates.
Like I don't have them on my plan right now, except for like my 2 high carb days.
Yeah.
But like even when I have a few clients too, because I started training people, and I always give them Rice Krispie treats because like even if they're in a deficit, it's like this one little like. They get to have something good, a treat.
It's nice because it's easily digestible carbohydrates, but it doesn't shoot a lot of blood into your stomach while you're training. Because you don't have blood in your stomach while you're training, right? Your blood is now in your muscles. That's where you're driving all the blood out. Mm-hmm. And so you want something that doesn't need a lot to kind of break down and absorb. So that's why things like...
So there we go, Rice Krispie treats, everybody. Yep. That's why we do it. Yeah.
Dextrose, Rice Krispie treats. Orange juice is another really good one. Coconut water is like lights out if you think... Rice Krispie treats are good. Coconut water is even better because you have potassium
gummy
in it.
bears?
Yep.
I know a lot of bodybuilders do that stuff,
they
like
do gummy
Sour
bears
Patch
too,
Kids.
Yeah, a lot harder to break down.
Yeah, I was
going
to
to say. A lot harder for the body to break down. So
the
how
crispy
quickly
treats
are you getting
better,
it?
huh?
Yeah. And again, if you're going to put one superior, coconut water is going to be far superior.
Yeah.
And then from there, it goes probably like Rice Krispie treats.
And so what's the benefits of the coconut water? Let's hear that.
The potassium in the coconut water. Potassium and sodium work together. So salt and potassium are major players into the carbohydrates being brought inside of your actual muscle.
Right.
Think about like the carbohydrates like the ship, and then the sodium and potassium are like the propellers on the ship. Well, the ship's not going to do shit unless you actually like pick it up and move it in there, and that's where electrolytes come into play.
Right.
So same thing we talked about. Adrenals driving down electrolytes. Now you're not getting a pump in the gym. Stress will do that. Blah blah blah.
Well, I know a lot of people do like those like they'll do like Carbo Max type stuff, and I've heard a lot of bad stuff about that because it like messes up your digestion. Apparently, it's like all maltodextrin type things and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe you'd be better with like what you just said, like just
coconut water is so easy, and I deal with the male clients that I deal with or I'm writing a protocol with are typically like. They're pushing a lot of food.
Oh yeah.
So we have to consider digestion. So let's do this. Let's finish up the girl scenario, and then let's talk about a male bodybuilder scenario. Perfect. And we'll go into gut and pushing food like a building. So if this client comes to me, birth control is just one of many things that we'll talk about, and then stress, right?
Yep.
So if they're not necessarily, I never ever pull somebody off birth control right away. That's probably like 3 months into working together. The worst thing you could do is just rip birth control out. A person will probably gain a lot of weight. It's called estrogen rebound. As your sex hormones come on, estrogen's the dominant one. And it will come on faster than anything else. And when you have that running the party, running the show, you have a lot of emotions. You're holding water. You're gaining weight. You start to have insulin issues. That's a whole round.
So that's like a male that gets off like... PEDs without any kind of like protocol, and then bam, they're full of estrogen.
Exactly. Okay. Super watery, super coming down, lots of inflammation. So if I'm not going to pull that, what do I do? How do I help them? Well, address inflammation. Like we talked about, inflammation, gut, thyroid, adrenals, those are the things that make the biggest difference. So I go in and I really support detox all around. So making sure I use a lot of things like dandelion root extract, which is going to help water. I push electrolytes. I push water. I use a lot of like... liver detox support. So like milk thistle,
milk thistle.
I use what's called a medical food. And there's like many different brands that make them. New Ethics makes one. It's called MediPure. Metagenics make one. It's called Ultra Clear. And then there's another one called MediClear. And all of these are basically like a phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox system. So phase 1 and phase 2, you'll hear this sometimes about liver. Basically, you have toxins in the body. Phase 1 is making them basically fat, and then phase 2 is making them into water and helping them pass through the body. Okay. So they've got to go all toxins have to go from one place to the other phase and then outside as they excrete, whether that's sweat, urine, or feces. Right.
And that's how we lose weight when we're doing cardio.
Exactly. Yeah. So we now the thing about like our just day-to-day life that people forget is like There's formaldehyde on this table. There's estrogen in our plastics. There's plastic right there that you're drinking out of. It's a warm coffee cup, so you're getting exposed to that. There's toxins literally
I'm just like
everywhere.
shoving estrogen into my body right now.
Yeah. Ooh,
And then we're like, we're wondering why we all have to get gyno surgery.
Yeah, I know.
I had that plastic surgery, and he said that's the number one male surgery. Number one female surgery is breast implants.
Yep.
So that's so funny.
It's the environmental estrogens, so they're called phyto or xenoestrogens that we're exposed to. And as bodybuilders, as bros, we microwave all of our fucking food in plastic all the time. We're eating with plastic silverware.
Right.
The coffee cup, the lid of the coffee cup is like the number one offender.
I put mine in plastic every day. I don't microwave. I use the air fryer, which is different.
Yeah,
but still, I mean,
you're putting warm
plastic,
food in plastic.
yeah.
BPA's. Oh yeah, it's crazy. You should see when I run like a
how do we
toxic
fight
load.
against that? Is there like certain products?
Yeah,
because even like I have the Wolfpack bag, but of course like the little meal things are all little plastic things.
So I would just buy glass.
Yeah.
That's your simple solution.
Just buy glass.
Be more mindful. So like I have a
metal
straws,
coffee cups. Yeah.
or I have a metal straw that I'll like put in my. I'll go to Starbucks and I'll like get a coffee and I'll put like a metal straw in there, so I'm not sipping off the actual coffee cup.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So just small things, and then supporting your body's detox systems, like supporting your body's ability to detox. People go, oh, my liver cleans that up for me. Your liver's fucking tired. Okay, I'm going to tell you, your liver's
definitely
pissed off.
affecting our society as a whole. Like they had that one lady on, it was like Joe Rogan's podcast, and he had that lady that was talking about all these like phytoestrogens from plastics, and like it's affecting men and women. Like, like the idea is like your grandfather had like a certain level of testosterone way more than you did. Mm-hmm. And then, like, and it's doing stuff to women, too, for sure.
Like our phones will also drive down estrogen. EMFs will drive down testosterone. EMFs in your house will drive down testosterone. EMFs will drive down fertility. They will drive up autoimmune diseases. Ooh. So, like, you're like, oh, EMFs. So what's an EMF? Your Bluetooth, your Wi-Fi. Yeah. We're just surrounded. I mean, I could go down a fucking rabbit hole, and we're all wearing tinfoil hats by the time we're done. We're just going to be in tinfoil hats. So these are the things I have to think about when I have a client.
It's real stuff, though.
It's real stuff. And it's very... So, like, I'm at a point now... I used to fucking slam my head up against a wall wondering why I couldn't get somebody to lose weight.
Right.
I'm in a place now as a coach. I've been doing this for 7 years, honestly. 5 years in functional.
Yeah.
That I go, I know exactly what to do here. And even then, sometimes I'm like, what the fuck just happened? That is not working. But for the most part, if I support the body's ability to detox, I bring the adrenals up. Mm-hmm. I stimulate the thyroid. Right. I feed them a lot more food, like 300 carbs.
Yeah.
I do those systems. I basically turn the circuit board off and I turn it all back on at the same time. The body loves that shit and it normally starts responding. So I have clients that are like 2,300 calories and they're, 145 pounds. They're losing a pound a week, sometimes like 5 pounds in like 2 weeks.
I think like you're right. So right about like the social media and the effects. So like it gets all these women and men too, honestly, starving themselves. Right.
Yeah.
And then they don't realize that like what you're doing is like making the body like just utilize calories better and like the metabolism gets better.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many systems, but we have to detox to get those systems on because there's what they're called is endocrine disruptors, and your endocrine is just your hormone system. So an endocrinologist takes care of hormones, endocrine, right? Think about like those kids' toys where there's like a circle and then there's a square and then there's a triangle and the kid's trying to put the triangle in the triangle. That is hormones and hormone receptors. Every cell has thousands of these receptor sites.
Okay.
One's for estrogen, one's for insulin, one's for thyroid hormones, one's for neurotransmitter profiles. As that cell starts to get, so it's got a circle there, that's your testosterone. Well, these endocrine disruptors, these toxins come in and they clog up this hole.
Okay.
And now that receptor site, one message gets sent over and it goes to communicate to the other cell. And guess what? The cell's clogged. So that doesn't communicate. And we have this miscommunication of cellular
So how do you clean
forces.
up these endocrine receptors from being clogged like that?
Yeah. So
that's the hard part.
That's the hard part. Yeah. Removing toxins from the body and lessening toxic load are two very simple ways to do that. We could like deep dive into cellular health, but I think it'd just be like it's so deep. I could do it. I mean, we could do it. I mean, how about this? Autophagy is the process of breaking down cells and then rebuilding them. Everybody does it. Every time we sleep, if we're getting adequate sleep, that happens. Our cells are breaking down. Things that speed up autophagy would be like cyclical fasting. So like 10, 12 hours. So like when you go to sleep, you're eating at 7 o'clock and then you're waking up and you're eating at 7 o'clock. So that's a 12-hour fast. Now you just move it 2 hours out. Now it's a 14-hour fast. So just that 2 hours can really do a lot of good.
Clean up, basically.
Clean up. So like.
So you're not anti-fasting in any way?
No, I love fasting.
I do think it's great. I mean,
I used to be anti-fasting and I used to be anti-keto, and it put me in a box.
Yeah.
The coach I am now, by breaking out of that box, because other bodybuilding coaches said it was bad, and how are you going to hold on to muscle tissue, and what about this, and then macros and carbohydrates and all this kind of stuff. I became a great coach when I got out of the box. And I do use fasting, and I do use keto with clients. And I talk about this with my autoimmune condition. I gained 45 pounds after competing, not right after competing, but I got an autoimmune condition and I had a ruptured implant, and I was super sick and super inflamed.
Damn.
And I worked with like the industry's best fucking coaches, the best doctor. I mean, imagine me.
Yeah.
You know, the doctor I'm picking is going to be a good fucking doctor.
Yeah, because you
know?
have so much knowledge yourself. That,
no one could figure out what's wrong with me. And only when I started doing fasting and keto and that cyclical cycle is the only thing that worked. I mean, like, I got my cycle back after not having a cycle for a long time. My hormones are regular. I'm off all my thyroid medication. So I do believe in that because we're resetting the cells.
There's got to be something about the system getting a break from just constantly being fed, right?
Yeah. Well, when we're in a system of mTOR, which is muscle building, and as bodybuilders, we love mTOR. You'll hear about mTOR gains and like, mTOR stimulation after a workout, and like all this mTOR word. I would like one of those people to break down what mTOR means. I'm just wondering if they know, but it's muscle building. It's muscle building. It's the process of muscle building, basically. Cellular building, right? So we have, it's anabolic.
Anabolic window.
It's anabolic window, exactly. So we have anabolic and we had catabolic. So when we're in a place of mTOR, our body is not in autophagy. Mm-hmm. So we're not getting that cellular cleanup. And as bodybuilders, we push mTOR because we're trying to always grow, be fed, regulate blood sugar level, protein pools, always eating, always digesting, every 3 hours, every 2 hours. And we train our body that way, which is, it's fine. It's not bad.
Right.
It's just about what system are you using at what time. So if you're a bodybuilder, something like adding in a 16 or 18 hour fast once or twice a week. So you're just 1 day a week, you eat at 12. And you're just doing water and electrolytes that time. Just that alone makes massive improvements with inflammation. And we can see it in the bodybuilding population.
I think fasting is great for anti-inflammation, anti-inflammatory.
And who's more inflamed than a bodybuilder?
Constantly, right?
Constantly inflamed. I mean, if you just
full of food, full of just
full of food, full of training, always breaking down muscle tissue, always trying to recover all of that. So there's so with this female client, those are the same systems I would use. I have to work through those basic systems. You're not gonna ever just go into it and not work those systems and get results. Not when somebody comes to me and can't lose weight.
You do online coaching, right?
I do all online coaching. Yeah.
I was gonna say I might actually have a friend who I need to refer you to. I think she would
send him over.
I think she would. It's a girl. I think she would really like you. Actually,
Yeah. Send him on over.
She was
like
so played basketball, very athletic, but getting older, wanting to figure out like why can't I seem to get in the shape I used to?
Or like, why do I work out and look like I don't work out? That's a really common one.
And she never had that issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I mean, she's still in good shape, but she's like not getting the results she wants.
Yes.
And so I'm like, I probably will give you give your name to her after the show.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we forget about is it's really common. There's a lot of people out there that can't or at one point competed.
Right.
We'll see this a lot with competitors. Mm-hmm. At one point competed, and then once they gain weight and they try to do it again, they cannot get into the same shape. Or they just look worse than just like a Gen Pop client. They're holding fat differently. They're holding fat underneath a lot more. They're more watery. Or they're more like holding it in just like weird areas in their midsection. A lot of that is hormonal dysfunction over time, or like gut dysfunction over time. The reason why gut dysfunction is so big with bodybuilding is because when we are in a deficit or on a plan and we're working with a coach who maybe just isn't as educated with gut health, a lot of times we're doing the same. We're doing asparagus, we're doing rice, we're doing chicken, we're doing rice, we're doing potatoes, we're doing beef, we're doing these things and GQ sauce. Right? And you're eating one of two vegetables. It's green beans or it's broccoli or it's asparagus or it's green beans. Like we are so close
I actually just
down.
do spinach. Like broccoli for me just gives me too much.
Exactly.
Like, sometimes I think like
So
vegetables are healthy, but also I think some of them cause crazy inflammation and stuff.
So if you can't, so this is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's probably because of the way you've been eating. Your body doesn't have the microbiome it needs for
to break
all
that
veggies.
down.
Exactly.
Right.
A good sign of health is that you can eat. Everyone's gonna have like, I just can't do Brussels. I love them. I'll eat them. He pays the price mostly.
Yeah.
But like, I love them. Like,
They are
these
amazing.
so
I
good.
put those in
I'm
the
so
air
sorry,
fryer.
babe.
No, you're right though, because there was, I think, from eating more of a bodybuilder diet, yes, like you get in the best shape of your life and you look good, but like there was definitely something more that I used to have when I was like younger and I just ate. I mean, I used to eat a lot
Yeah.
because I was just like a big dude growing up, you know, and I always had like a steel stomach, basically. Like I could eat anything and feel fine, you know, like, and I feel like that's
now you're
gone.
sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is exactly
And
why.
maybe even kind of like made myself like intolerant to glutens and stuff because I'm doing all white rice and easily digestible carbs. So if I would just like eat a 7-grain bread right now, I'd probably be like, ugh.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
and that is
saying?
a horrible sign for your gut. Horrible
Right,
sign for your gut. Your
right.
gut is literally like your immune system, your neurotransmitter profile, your overall health. It's so many different things. And it does it in the moment when you're competing and you're only eating those things. You only notice them when you're not on your diet. So it's not really applicable. You're like, fuck that. At least I'm on my diet.
Right.
It kind of helps us stay on our diet. 'Cause when
So like, do you think having a nice like cheat meal every week that like does that kind of help your
Yeah.
digestion?
I
'Cause
think
you're
even more than
throwing
that-
some different stuff at it once in a while.
I think more than that, I think something so simple as like, I eat a different veggie. Every week I'm going to pick 2 veggies, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this veggie and that veggie. I'm going to do carrots and green beans this week. I'm going to do red peppers, and I'm going to do broccoli next
you're
week. I'm
mixing
going to
it
do
up.
bok choy, and I'm going to do this. It doesn't need to be every single meal. Or one thing I say is like really easy is mixed vegetable blends. Get every
Get a
single
bunch of
week.
different stuff.
Try to get like different things. You can do like the different things. You're always going to be eating rice and potatoes, and it will tell you if you want to have a robust gut. Cooked and then cooled and then recooked potatoes, cooked, cooled, and then recooked rice. It begins to
that
have
would be all mine though, because
a
I put them in the
starch.
fridge. So
It has a starch. Every time you do that, it creates resistant starches, which are really good for your gut microbiome.
I always cook my food, put it in the fridge, and then reheat it
Yep,
later.
Yep.
Okay, so
there's
that's good.
there's the plus of being a bodybuilder. Potatoes and rice, yeah.
I do love it. I love potatoes and rice.
That robustness is really, really important. And same thing with oils. What kind of fat are you getting? Peanut butter is the worst fat because it holds a lot of molds and it's super inflammatory. And that is where a lot of bodybuilders
Doesn't it
get their
cause
fat.
a lot of what do they call it? Like seepage of like intestinal
permeability.
It's kind of the same thing as legumes, like beans and stuff like that. They can cause a lot of that.
They can, but beans are really important for gut health too. But peanuts specifically, because of the way they're processed, they hold so much mold that when you have, think about it.
What about seed oils too? Bad.
Seed oils can be good. You want a balance of like seed oils, avocado oils. People will always ask me like, oh, this has sunflower oil in it. And I'm like, great, you need that. I can show you the studies of how that actually lowers cholesterol.
Okay.
Because there's benefits.
Yep.
We want that balance. And so again, it's not necessarily that one is bad. It's that when we're only doing certain things, our gut becomes really, really like one-dimensional. And
I would
when you
say the
have
bodybuilding
that-
diet does that.
so when you try to come out of that, that's when we start to see clients. Okay, now it's a build phase. I want to push food.
So peanut butter, no. What about like almond butters?
Almond butters are normally a lot less inflammatory.
Okay.
Yeah. Or like Costco has like mixed seed butters. I love that one because you get like 4 or 5 different types of seeds and nuts together. It's like Brazil nuts, chia seed, flax seed. Again, variety is really, really like so important. Even if you're getting like mixed berries, just something where you're like getting more than just the same thing. Because we become very like, it's a lot cheaper too to buy bulk of one thing. You know?
That's unique of you as a coach because you're right. I think most plans, they keep it very simple.
Yeah.
And then you're not getting any kind of variety.
Yes. And that actually starts to create downfall down the line because I think what people think is if from their own experiences, because as coaches, we coach on our own reality. It's just what we do. I think they think, oh, well, if this person eats Brussels sprouts and we change their plan, they're going to get gassy. That's going to fuck them up. The question is, why are they getting gassy? That's like, that's way back here. That's in their building phase. And honestly, like really working on gut health during a building phase is the perfect opportunity, right? Because you can work on that a little bit more, but it should be kept in. The leaner someone gets, that stuff really does matter.
The variety. Yeah.
Because as a bodybuilder, what's more important than competing? Growing season. Who doesn't love growing? Every girl hates growing season. Every guy loves growing season because they're like, gains, I'm so strong, I love it.
We do love it, but I think that you're right. There is this like new pressure to try to look like Instagram lean year round. Because like all the big influencers are looking shredded year round.
I always say,
and I know guy coaches that get frustrated with that because they're like they don't want to bulk, and I need you to bulk or you're not going to gain. Like
I have friends that go through the same thing, and I'm like,
women definitely don't like that. They like how
it's super hard, and I think a lot of it is what we talked about: the attention, the recognition. You put so much value in your worth when you're that lean. You get a lot more attention when you're competing. People want to look like you. Everyone's always commenting about how you look.
Yep.
And when you start to lose that, it feels very different. So as a coach and as a competitor, when I gained so much weight, I was like, this doesn't feel good. Because I felt like, well, I literally would have people be like, she doesn't look like a coach. I don't want to work with her. And I have coaches that I mentor, and they'd be like, one of them was sending a client to me. And now this person's like very Instagram famous. And she's like, I don't look like a coach, me, talking about me.
Yeah.
And why don't I like practice what I preach? And I was like, well, first of all, bitch, you're lucky I'm not hood anymore. But no, but I was honestly like, I get it, because really it's true. We look at a coach as like who's shredded and looks really good. We're not necessarily looking at what they know. I've made that decision, and I've made shitty decisions of coaches at time based on that specifically.
Right.
Now, I think that it's important for your coach to not, obviously, to practice somewhat of a healthy lifestyle,
if your coach is like just like eating candy bars all the time, and like,
but nobody seems to care about the coach that's popping Molly and doing coke every weekend because he's ripped.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, or doing tons of PEDs and like ruining his fucking organs and like
we know. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe looks great, but like his completely destroying his body and is going to be dead at like 45. You know, like,
and it's just, and there's different strokes for different folks. I think there's a lot of different reasons why people pick different coaches. But I think, and like I said, like, it's just what we talked about. Coaches niche down into specific things. Like, not everyone has the capacity to read hours of research. I've paid tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, like, thousands and thousands and thousands. Every time I come home with a new course, Daddy's mad. No, not really. He's like, what? How much was that? I'm like, 20,000. It's fine. I'll be super smart.
It is cool, though. It's so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But not every coach has that understanding, and it doesn't make them a bad coach. We don't know what we don't know. And I think that it's just about, like, pushing ourselves a little bit more, because like I said, in growth season is where you're going to start to see inflammation and gut issues.
Yeah.
And you're going to have trouble pushing food. And then again,
so let's talk about that. You said for like a male client.
Yep, for a male client.
Especially during like that season, because like that is honestly fun. Like, I'm super stoked. I'm going to be in the Emerald Cup and everything, but like I am stoked to at some point try to get a lot, bigger.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you're tall, so it's going to be harder for you to put muscle on general.
Yeah.
In general, it's going to be, when somebody's tall, they got to worry about like calves and legs.
Right.
And when you're short, you're like, I got legs for days. You're like, this is awesome. Like, I might be strong, but I got legs for days.
And then you start like cutting, and you get so skinny. You're like, oh, I got to try to be wide and all this.
It's
a
lot. It's a lot. Yeah. And in general, that's bodybuilding. That's where you see really successful bodybuilders that just come out of the gate banging are typically genetically very gifted, or they have shorter, rounder muscle bellies, which is why like it's a lot easier to grow when you're 5'6", 5'5", and you're like giant and wide, and you look swole, but you're like it's just your muscle bellies are shorter, so you're gonna.
We have what we have to work with, so it's like I will never complain about it.
You get what you get.
Short people definitely
when it comes to male bodybuilding are an advantage.
They have an advantage. 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think so. For like a specific male coming out of competing, we have a couple different things to worry about. Again, estrogen, gut, all of that stuff plays a really big factor. Part of estrogen detox in the body, because there's estrogen being made in the body, and then there's estrogen circulating in the body. And estrogen comes out of the body in a couple different ways.
Right.
Those genetic pathways, so think about like different rivers, and think about like 3 different forks in the road, right?
Yep.
You have pathways that are really inflammatory, less inflammatory, and then protective. When they're going down an inflammatory pathway, they cause a lot of inflammation on the body, and they also wreck DNA.
Okay.
So now we're talking again about aging, cellular health, cancer, prostate cancer, estrogen-based cancers for females, stuff like that. When a person is taking a lot of PEDs and now they're coming off of PEDs. A lot of times we're dealing with some sort of mitigation of estrogen, meaning like an estrogen rebound. And so it's really important to support the detoxification of that estrogen. That's in your gut.
Yeah.
And then it's in your liver. Those are the places where it gets bound up the most. And they've actually like done studies, and they can they dye estrogen with like iodine or something. I forget what the exact study was called, but they basically tracked it, and it just kind of bounces. It doesn't come out of the body. So that's, remember I talked about what's coming out versus what's in your blood are different.
All right, everybody, it is time to take a short break for our sponsors. The Nicky Free podcast is now brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. So join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. So it is 20% off and free shipping worldwide with the code NickyFit at manscaped.com. So the thing about it is, like, when you're, you're trying to shave your balls, you got like a date or something, you don't know where things are going to go, but you don't want to be like showing up all messy down there. You want to show up all clean. You want to be looking good down there. You know what I'm saying? So like, we've all done that. You get a shaver out, you go to shave yourself, and what happens every time? You cut your balls, man. And it's no good when you cut your balls. You start bleeding all over your ball sack. You got blood going everywhere. You get it cleaned up. You go on the date. And, like, obviously, you're a high-performance male. So, like, things are going good for you in the date. Stuff starts going well. And next thing you know, like, one thing leads to another. But then the thing is, you whip it out. And, like, there's a big thing. Like, your balls are all cut up. And it's, like, all sore down there. And it's, like, such a turnoff, So it's, like, you don't want that to happen to you, Like, you don't want a big open wound on your ball sack when you're out on a date. Like, that's just no way to be. So check out the Performance Package 4.0 has arrived, and it is a game changer. So inside this package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is right here. And look at these things, man. Manscaped's products are so aesthetically pleasing looking. Like, the design on it, it looks like something that Batman would use. It's like so sleek. It's all black. It's just like aesthetically pleasing to look at. They've done such a good job. So this is the Lawnmower 4.0. The other thing that comes in the Performance Package is the Weed Whacker, nose hair and ear trimmer, because it's like, I see this all the time. You're talking to somebody, and it's like they take care of themselves. They eat healthy. They work out. They're trying to look good and everything. But then it's like you look at their nose, and it's a bunch of nose hair sticking out. Bro, take care of that. Like, why do you want to do that? Use the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, because, like, clean that shit up, dude. Nobody wants to see that, man. Inside the package, you're also going to find the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, because you want your balls to smell good, the Crop Reviver Toner, and then also the Boxer Briefs that come with. And I'm probably going to take some scantily clad photos in these, because, if you've seen my Instagram, the leaner I get, the more like scantily clad photos and videos I take. So I'm going to be rocking these Manscaped things, showing off the abs, trying to look sexy online. I'll be taking some videos in these. It also comes with the travel bag, so you can carry it all with you, so that when you're on the go, you got to be looking good when you're on the go. So let's talk a little bit about the Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is the future of grooming, and dare I say, the greatest ball hair trimmer ever. It's a 4th generation trimmer. It features cutting edge ceramic blades to reduce grooming accidents thanks to the advanced skin safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof. It also has an LED spotlight, so when you're down there doing it, man, like, you can see all the nooks and crannies. It got the spotlight on it, so you're not missing any spots or anything. Because it's waterproof, you can say goodbye to the mess on the bathroom floor. You can do it in the shower. You can, So, guys, it's time to take care of yourself. All right, look at this. Look at this product. It's awesome. Thank you, Manscaped. This stuff is so great. They also threw in this beard hedger, which is just a great beard trimmer. We'll talk about that another time. But this is the Performance Package. So, yeah, guys, go online, go to manscaped.com. If you want 20% off, use code NickyFit. You will get 20% off and free shipping worldwide. So check out the performance package. It's awesome. And thank you guys so much. Use code NickyFit. Save 20%. You're really helping out the podcast. And I want to say that I was already using Manscaped before they started sponsoring the podcast. I think they're a great product. So thank you guys for picking this stuff up. Use code NickyFit. Save 20% and free shipping. You're really helping me out. You're helping out the podcast. And thank you to Manscaped. And thank you guys. Go out there. Let's get cleaned up. Let's not go out there all messy and stuff. We got to look good. All right, guys. Thank you. Okay.
So that's where it starts to play a toll. So with male bodybuilders, post-cycle, post-competing, something like beta-glucuronidase is a really good supplement that helps support the estrogen bound up in the gut.
Yep.
And helps open up gut detoxification.
So there are certain supplements you can take to help.
Yep. DIM is another really good one, DIM, and it helps with estrogen detox. Mm-hmm. And then glutathione, which I don't know if you've heard about glutathione. It's like a really big one. He's like, yeah.
Well, I've definitely heard of milk thistle for liver.
Milk thistle is good for liver. Glutathione is like... have you heard of NAC?
Sounds familiar.
Glutathione is an antioxidant, and what an antioxidant is oxygen, oxidative stress, these oxygen species, if you will.
Yeah.
They're kind of like Tasmanian devils inside of the cell.
Okay.
Inside of every cell is a little engine. It's called a mitochondria, right? It helps the cells move around the body.
Yes.
These little Tasmanian devils get inside and they break down and think of it just hardening the cell. So when something gets oxygenated, it hardens, right?
Okay.
So that's oxygenation.
Right.
Antioxidants
stop
that cycle from hardening the cell and damaging
So that's
the
why
cell.
we always want antioxidants?
That's why we want antioxidants, which most people
And where do you get a lot of antioxidants? There's certain
glutathione.
foods and glutathione.
There's certain foods. Pomegranate juice is really, really good.
Yeah.
Pomegranate juice, pomegranates, blueberries. The darker the berry, the more antioxidants it's going to have.
I've always heard that about like dark berries.
Yeah, dark, like acai, pomegranates, cherries, stuff like that are all really, really good. Mm-hmm. Honestly, for the amount of PEDs that hypothetically we might be running, hypothetically, as my voice drops 2 octaves. Hypothetically, the anavar, no.
Yeah.
But like at PEDs, if you're a male bodybuilder, I'm sorry, unless you're natural, which I haven't met many real natural competitors, like we're putting so much stress on our body and everything breaks down that cell. So like cardio, not recovering, not sleeping, all those things go hand in hand, right? So it doesn't, your cherries and pomegranates aren't going to touch it.
Yeah.
Get yourself some glutathione, liposomal glutathione or injectable. I think like Amino Asylum and some of those like peptide companies will have injectable glutathione. It hurts like a motherfucker, but it is literally game over for detoxifying your body.
Okay.
And again, those are
glutathione.
Yeah, injectable or liposomal glutathione. And like I said, a lot of the like peptide companies will have that. And that is a really good, so that and beta-glucuronidase coming out of a cycle, and then milk thistle, or like I said, a medical food that supports that liver detox.
Okay.
All of those are like first line of defense when somebody is coming off of a cycle for a male or female. For male specifically, we have to look at what? Cardio health.
Right.
We don't know about bodybuilders and those tickers,
hate doing
man.
cardio.
Oof. Well, cardiovascularly, they're just putting so much load on their heart in general. Their blood is thick as shit.
Right.
It's like molasses running through them.
What do you think about like, does doing actual cardio help that? So
Yeah.
if somebody is running a lot of PEDs,
Yeah.
does like doing, because I feel like guys will stop doing cardio during bulking season. It's like, you probably really need to be doing it just to keep your heart, you know what I mean?
Cardio is cardio protective. It's so important to be doing cardio. When you're so big, most things feel like cardio. You know what I mean?
Oh my God,
like
yeah,
moving their body up the stairs, that puts so much pressure on their heart and their blood is so thick. A product I really, really like that is a prescription, but if you have somewhere you're getting PEDs, you probably have someone to get talmostartan from. Talmostartan is a blood pressure medication that also thins the blood with like very little side effects. It's awesome for bodybuilders.
Okay.
You can honestly Google or Reddit talmostartan and bodybuilding to get whatever dosages, because I'm not going to do that on here. But you can find those on there, and it's a really, really safe, effective way to get your blood to just be a little bit thinner, because that pressure on the heart when you're running a lot of gear it's the blood being so thick trying to press through there. And think about it, your heart is a muscle. So you're doing all of these things that affect muscularly, and all of the inflammation on top of that, and your body's just the furthest thing from a well-oiled machine when you're really pushing food.
Right.
Things like krill oil, D-limonene, which you can get on, so D-limonene, you can get it on Amazon, and krill oil, you can get it on Amazon. Don't go cheap with your supplements when it comes to your heart. Like, it's really important.
So important, aren't they?
So important. Those are two really, really good ones that can really help with and niacin with heart health when you're running PEDs. So those are things that I think about for men, like specifically like the detoxification systems, and then how do we get their heart in a good position. So like those are the main factors there. And then gut. When it comes to gut, it doesn't matter who you are. At a certain point, you have to have digestive enzymes to support the amount of food you're breaking down.
Right. So what are some things you can give people? Like, I mean, obviously, like we take digestive enzymes, like sauerkraut, apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar is like
the basic
the
stuff,
basic,
right?
the very, very basic. And honestly, if you're pushing food, 2 ounces of apple cider vinegar twice a day should be like for gut health for so many reasons. It's just very good. But hydrochloric acid, so betaine HCl is stomach acid.
Yes.
It's very different than digestive enzymes. I think this gets confusing sometimes for people. Think about like the phone system inside of your stomach, and it's like a dude calls up and he's like, hey, we got food moving through, and then stomach acid is like, yep, I'll go ahead and I'll break it down for you, and then stomach acid calls over to the pancreas, and the pancreas releases digestive enzymes, and he's like, hey, we've got like 2 pounds of beef and some rice and some spinach in here. And then your pancreas says, all right, I'm going to send over lipase and amylase and the different enzymes that need to be broken down for that.
Yep.
So there's 2 different systems. So we need both support, hydrochloric acid and pancreatic enzymes. And then from there, what can your body absorb? You will not grow if your body cannot absorb it.
Yeah.
So if you are not getting enough stomach acid, there's these little guys inside of your stomach, and they've got fingers. They're called villi. And if you have low stomach acid, they lay flat. They're just like this. You want them up and just like really excited to touch the food as it comes in. Okay. So hydrochloric acid will do that. So you need those 2 things to help break down and absorb the food, because it's less about what you eat and more about, like I said, like what you can actually uptake. It. Yeah, exactly. Especially when it comes to protein. Especially when it comes to protein. So is that
something where, like, when guys are pushing a lot of food and they're really big, is that, like, it's just harder and harder for the body to digest?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a lot of food and the frequencies of the meal and the amount
you're up to, like,
of
7,000 calories a day sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I have a client who, how tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
Okay, so he's the same height as you, and he's 210. How much do you weigh?
I'm, like, 220.
Okay, so he's 219, between 219 and 215 is kind of like where we base him. Yeah. In a gut protocol, we're at around, to keep him stable, I got to keep him around 4,000 calories. And that's not a growth. When I drop below that, his weight starts to drop a little bit.
Yeah.
So like that's a lot of food, right? Especially if I have somebody who has a massive gut problem and I have to lower food to get their gut problem under control, because any bad bacteria, which when you eat a very small diet that doesn't have a lot of food variety in it, the good bacteria die off. And the less good bacteria there are, the more the bad bacteria are like, fuck this shit. We're about to rage in here. And they go in, and then what they do is they go inside the colon and they're the lining, the intestinal lining, and it's normally dry because, again, we're not getting a lot of coconut oil and aminos and aloe vera juice when we're cutting. And they basically, this is really, really crazy. It's like alien shit.
Yeah.
They stick themselves to the walls of the intestines, different species. Yeah. And then they start to communicate to each other, and they start to pull each other closer and closer and closer until they make a barrier that's like unfuckwithable. Nothing can penetrate it except like very specific herbs that are called biofilm disruptors. And so what happens is once they're there, you can take things that'll help your digestion. And then anytime you get stressed or eat anything inflammatory, they break open and they fall down and they start the party all over again. And it's just this cycle over and over and over again.
So you're not really going to be digesting what you are eating.
What you're eating, and then you have an overgrowth of specific bacteria because they love carbohydrates, and we ain't growing if we're not pushing carbohydrates. So now you have more and more dysbiosis going on. And then what happens is when a person then goes down to cut again, they have massive inflammation. They haven't grown in their off season. There's so many different factors. They're not pooping regularly. They're feeling bloated. You'll start to see that massive belly. It's not just GH too. A lot of times these people are like, oh, it's just GH belly. That looks like SIBO belly to me. It's like hard and it's out and they're burping all the time.
You do see a lot of that nowadays for sure.
A lot. I can see it too. I can see the difference. I'll be like, that person has a little bit of digestive issues. Right. I don't always do that, but sometimes I'm like,
even in bodybuilding shows, like that was a thing, right?
Yep.
Like the older physiques used to do more vacuums and stuff, and they had that smaller waist. And then for a while, it was like the big gut, gut abs was like a big thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is now, but
yeah, it's really, gut health is so important for a physique athlete, especially for females.
Yeah.
Especially for females, especially for bikini girls. It's so important, and I can see it clear as day.
Because even the slightest little thing, the physique will change completely.
You'll see it. Yep, water, and their stomach looks bloated, and they're like, and now they're not posing. They can't suck their stomach in because it literally hurt. I mean, I have a client, and it was like, we're going to show, and I kept telling her we can't cut. This is like on my bad, right? Because I'm like, as I'm saying this, I'm like, I kept telling her you got gut issues, we can't do this. But she's my friend, and I was like, all right, we're gonna do this one last show, and then we're out. We got to take care of your gut. Sure as shit. I'm like, you have to be doing vacuums. She's like, they just hurt so bad. I'm like, this is a sign.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
that it
sure
hurts.
enough, they were like, your body looks ready for nationals. Looks like you could go pro. Your stomach and your midline needs to come down.
Yeah.
That was her feedback.
That's so weird that it's like hurts to do vacuums, because like I get it in a sense, like it would hurt if you're like holding it, like just like the pain, but if it's just hurting in general, that's gotta be something messed up.
Yeah. Well, when you're pushing food, do you do vacuums now?
I mean, I try to do them in the morning.
Yeah. When you're empty. And,
I just like hold it in and
Yeah.
But I don't know, it doesn't really hurt.
Yeah. You get enough. I mean, I'm talking about like bent over, crying, gut pain. People get this.
Okay.
I have clients. I've been through it too. I have massive clients. And if you ask around at the gym too, like you'll start to have, oh, I had that too. I had SIBO, or I had this, or I had that. Like SIBO is a hot topic, And you're like, oh wow, there's a lot. Now that you have this conversation, you'll start to see and hear it a little bit more.
Well, this
Somebody
is all
will say
really
something.
fascinating, honestly. Yeah.
It's funny because he's like, everyone's like these normal guts. And I was like, think about our friends. Just like stop and close your eyes and think about them for a second. And we have like a big group of like different friends that are gym, not gym, all those kind of people. I would say 1 out of 3 of our friends has massive gut issues. Massive. Like, and it's just like they talk about it like it's nonchalant. And I'm like, that's not really normal. I try not to say anything now because I don't want to be like the person that's always like, you should take care of that. But at a certain point, most people have been living in a certain way their whole life that they think it's normal. Like I normally have clients that come on, they're like, I poop normal. I'm like, okay, great. No digestive issues. They'll go, no. And I go, how often do you poop? Every other day, sometimes every third day. And I'm like,
that is not normal.
That's not normal. Or once a day is actually even not normal, guys. That's very low, sluggish motility once a day.
Yeah.
That's normally like I'm in a diet or a deficit, very low food intake, or something else is going on.
Right. So I think you're so right about that. Like there is a weird thing about, and that's what I think many of us that have gotten in shape or like gotten into the fitness thing.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing people that don't do it don't realize how good they could feel. Yeah. So it is hard because like you'll have your friends that just, and it's like, they don't even realize how good their body could actually feel.
Yeah. And it's hard because there's so much conflicting information. And then what is the bigger fuck for that person? And it's always about being realistic. And sometimes I'll ask somebody like, what's the most important thing to you right now? Is it that you have a good sex drive and like your dick works? Or is it that you're super strong? Because those aren't always the same thing.
Right.
Is it that you're really happy at work and you're stress free? Or is it that you're really skinny? Like, are you happy with your husband and kids? Or are you skinny? What's more important to you? Because the further you get away from one look, the harder it's going to play a part in everything else.
Looking good doesn't always necessarily mean having the best life.
I talk about the triangle of awareness, and it's like if you said like, hey, the top was strength, and then the right side, that was going to be like quick, like I'm quick. Right. And then the other side, the left side, that's I'm shredded. The further you get from one, the more shredded you are, the less strong you are, the less fast you are. The faster you are, the less strong you are, the less lean you are. Like, it's not, the stronger you are. Look at strong men. They ain't shredded. They ain't fast, but they're fucking strong. So you have to think about like that, like triangle. And then what's the cost of getting lean to you? What are you willing to give up? I just said this to somebody today. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to compete again. I like really was thinking about it. And I was like, I don't really think I want to compete again for the simple fact of like, how much I have to give up for that time and how long it takes for my body personally. I deal with autoimmune conditions.
So to come back
from that. And for what? More crowns and swords and like to say I did it again, it's kind of like, and that's no harp on anyone who wants to compete, but I think it's really important to think about
what you want in life,
where you're at. I have friends that are competing and they've competed and competed and competed and they pretty much look the same year to year, and they have like autoimmune conditions, and I'm like, hey, that won't go hand in hand. This won't change until this changes. But they're just like, that's not the important thing to them right now. The important thing to them right now is just competing, you know, and that's okay. It's knowing where someone's at and being real with where you're at. Like, I don't want to change the way I eat. I like the way I eat. Okay, then know that that's going to come along with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, no, totally. And yeah, I just don't know if people realize how much food affects how they feel.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other thing too. So it's weird. It's like if you're like miserable in life and you don't feel good, like, but you don't want to ever change that. It's like you don't know how good like your life could be. So
this is like really funny. I always use him as an example. So like my boyfriend, like I remember one of the first times. So me doing what I do, you know.
Right.
And I go over to his house and he's like, it's like, yeah, it's just a protein-filled meal or whatever. And he pulls out tortillas and a bag of cheese. And he's like or he talked about the protein in a quesadilla.
Dude, that sounds delicious.
And I was like, you know, now he's like obviously totally different.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like, it's not like, oh my God, I can't believe. It's like, no, that's what most people think.
Right.
It literally says high protein on peanut butter.
Oh, they mislabel food terribly.
I have so many people like, oh, I had peanut butter, it had protein in it. I'm like, yeah, 6 grams.
Like, look at sugary cereal. They market it as healthy.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's so many things, and there's so much information that we just don't know. There's so many, like, there's Activia, there's Atkins, there's fasting, there's, like, the 28-day there's juice cleanses, there's every single
my buddy
thing.
just did one of them juice cleanses.
Yeah, and I'm sure he felt good at certain points.
I don't know if he did or not.
Yeah, I mean.
So here's the big one. So like that Huberman Lab podcast, he did one about alcohol.
Yes.
And it was probably, I think it was one of the most listened to podcasts of all time.
I shared it with so many people.
I sent it to all my friends because I'm like, you know, and I hate to like try to vilify, like I have alcohol here on the table. I drink once in a while. But and being somebody that works in the bar industry, I'm serving people every day. But it'd be hard for me to say that they're actually functionally healthy in any kind of way. The people that drink every day. Like, I don't view them as healthy people. They're not, you know, like they have issues.
It's not a good place to be drinking every day. And then we talked about.
So what does that do to gut health and everything?
Yeah.
And mood and your psyche and.
When it comes to, first of all, I'll never be able to come close to what Huberman said on his podcast. It was an almost 3-hour podcast, so we're not going to be able to fill it in. So I highly recommend, if you're actually interested in hearing about it, listen to it. If you have an open mind, if you're going to go into it with a closed mind of like, I'm not going to stop drinking, this is bullshit. Like, you're not going to hear the message with anything. But one very simple process inside of the body that happens when we consume alcohol. Think about how much we've talked about what the liver does and how much we need phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. Just in that alone, when you consume alcohol during that period, up to 72 hours, your body is not able to detox itself. Right. It slows down everything. That's also going to affect weight loss. And then it also, we see this a lot in women. Not only does it affect the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, so your gut lining, we talked about what that does. Right. But it also creates a big estrogen issue since estrogen leaves through the liver. Not just with men, but with women, you'll see the same exact thing. So a lot of times you'll see people who drink a lot have a lot more issues with.
Well, the other thing with women was like, I think the number was, and I'd have to look it up to be sure, it was like every 10 grams of alcohol you consume per day increases like breast cancer by like 13% or something.
Yeah,
so
because we talked about your
estrogen
detoxing.
And it has to do with estrogen. That's why. 100%. Yeah.
It's exactly what we talked about. And again, you will not see that on labs. Oh, my doctor said my labs are fine. My estrogen's okay. You won't see it. You'll only see it with a Dutch test.
It's like not, like you said, not to vilify alcohol, but the problem is people get angry about these things that are facts. facts, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like we're not saying it to say you're a bad
My
person.
grandpa drank whiskey every day.
It's
He was
just a
fine.
f-
Yeah,
it's
but he
just-
was fucking miserable.
Yeah.
He hated his life. He shit himself 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things that's like alcohol will also cause a lot of issues with that
Right.
mood. And like, there's so many. And
We
then
can say the
don't-
positive parts of it too,
Yeah.
like social lubricant. It can be fun. It can bring
Yeah.
people closer together. But there's no denying the actual real effects that it has
Exactly.
on your body. I mean, you can't pretend that doesn't
And it's
exist.
so socially acceptable that people do it a lot more frequently than they're doing Molly or they're doing
I think that's the
psychedelics or they're
weirdest
doing
part
something
about it
else.
for me is like, if you went to your boss and you were like, oh my God, I was shooting up so much heroin last night. It was crazy. Your boss would probably either fire you or be
Yeah.
super concerned or like, but if you were like, oh my God, I got so wasted last night, your boss would
Yeah.
be like, sweet. It almost would probably endear you to your boss. even
Yeah, it's,
more.
or especially if you guys can relate to that same exact
It's
thing.
so
like
weird
you'll
how
see this with
socially
women and
acceptable.
wine, you know, and you're
Right.
like, oh, I drink my wine and it's totally fine. And it's like, literally, you're an alcoholic with your kids at home right now, but it's fine because it's in a wine glass. And you're
Right.
wearing $100 Lululemon, so it's totally fine. So it's like it's socially acceptable to like have wine on
It's
Wednesday
a
morning.
very weird drug,
which is
yeah,
fine.
in that sense.
Zero judgment on that, but understanding. I actually was at a party with him not that long ago, and something, I don't know what I came up did. She said, "What do you do?" And I was like, "I help women lose weight. I'm a functional coach. This is what I do. People with menopause, autoimmune conditions." She goes, "Oh my God, I'm going through menopause. I cannot lose weight. What do? I will hire you right now." And I said, "Do not hire me if you cannot go a week without drinking." Because
Yeah.
nothing's going to change if you don't stop drinking. Especially, I can go into menopause for like, that's a whole nother.
I know.
I've
I've had people want to be clients, and I tell them that too. It's like,
You can't,
I'm like,
will
you
not
could
work.
probably have like 2 drinks a week, and if I had you on a meal plan, and you would still like be making progress. But if you're gonna do more than that, you're not gonna make.
Yeah.
It's not possible, really.
And
you
for
know?
women, that won't be the same thing. There are genetic outliers. I will say that because there might be someone listening that's like, that's not true though. I drank my whole prep. That's nice. You're literally 1 in a million.
Right.
You're literally 1 in a million because most people cannot do that. And that's the other reason why they're like, I don't know why I'm not seeing results in the gym. Well, it's because you're under eating and then you're drinking alcohol. It's creating inflammation. It's creating this estrogen buildup. Like there's this like genetic downfall with all
Right.
of it. And then mostly it affects sleep. Sleep. I
You
mean,
do not sleep.
You will not lose weight.
don't
if
actually sleep.
Exactly. You don't sleep. And you see this even with THC. And it's something I have to go through with clients that
Oh,
use
even
THC
marijuana
for
too.
sleep.
Like, yeah,
Yep.
marijuana too. Like
It disrupts your circadian rhythm heavily.
right, because I'm kind of pro like, I want a free society where you can drink, you can do what you want, you can do drugs, you can't. Like,
I'm big on
same.
big on drugs. Not
But
like I'm big on drugs.
let's be realistic about what they
I didn't
are.
just say that.
We're big on drugs here, so that's good. No, but you're right. THC does the same thing. Like you
Yeah.
don't actually get real sleep. Same thing if you
Yes.
pass out from drinking. That's not sleep. You're
Yeah.
not actually getting sleep.
And so sleep is so important. This isn't like super passion topic for me. I was like, it's funny because when we first met, I was getting ready to present in Tennessee on sleep at like a bodybuilding conference.
Mm-hmm.
And he helped me look through the PowerPoint, and meaning my boyfriend for this, he's just sitting here with us.
He's sitting off camera.
He's sitting
just
off camera.
chilling,
He's like,
just
he's
chilling.
into boss mode. But he was going through it, and he looks at me and he goes like, am I gonna die? I like never sleep. And I was like, yeah, probably like at a younger age than you should have died. I'm like, because that's just like, I'm like very sciencey. I'm like, well, technically
funny
the
thing
data
is-
says you will die earlier.
That's technically true.
It's technically
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
He was like, holy shit. Because I am like a no sleep. He's no sleep, always grind, go, 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 flying from state to state,
I
especially
feel
in his
that
jobs.
though. I feel that.
It's
That's
the
like a
society I'll sleep when I'm dead, that powerhouse. And honestly, most jobs will push that.
Yeah.
I want you to stay up late and finish this project and fly here and do that. And what happens is we have a washing machine inside our brain. It's called the glymphatic system. And what happens is when we hit certain realms of deep sleep, that system sends spinal fluid up through your brain.
Yes.
And think about your brain, all the thoughts and all the shit that goes on through your brain throughout the day. Everything in your stomach is also connected to your brain.
yeah.
So when you're having gut issues, it's communicating to your brain.
People forget that,
They
right?
forget that. It's called the vagus nerve. So we get this plaque in our brain. And I always like to say, like, think about it as like dryer sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And like you have 1 dryer sheet, 2 dryer sheets, 3 dryer sheets. They're all sticking together.
Right.
When those dryer sheets in our brain, we have these like deep crevices that are like valleys. When those, and they send communications to each other. They send it over to their neighbor on the other side of the valley.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those dryer sheets, they block up that valley, and the communication signals get blocked. That's
Right.
Alzheimer's. That's also Parkinson's.
Shit.
That's dementia. Well, what happens is at night we have the body is so fucking amazing. Like I always think about like this is just my personal opinion, but you can't not believe in God when you really start to learn the body. Because
Yeah.
how do we just happen to have a washing machine that scrubs our brain built into our body for this plaque that we didn't know existed? So
is
when
pretty
we
wild.
sleep, it goes up, and it only when you get into deep levels of sleep, like good recovered sleep. It
Right.
washes out, sends spinal fluid up, it scrubs the brain, and it flushes it back out. And you can see this on MRIs. Like, you can Google it. It's really fucking cool.
That is
It's like, holy shit,
fascinating.
did that just happen? And that is our body's way of protecting itself against the damage of our day-to-day life. When you do not sleep, when you take THC, when you drink alcohol late at night, your body does not get that. So now we have higher risk of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, depression, anxiety.
Sleep is everything.
Sleep is everything. So if you are someone who just alone is not getting good sleep, let this be the message to you that it is a scientific fact. You are taking years off your life. Right. Scientific fact. And if not off your life, off your brain. So you may live a little bit longer, but your brain may have gone 10 years ago and your family doesn't
It
know.
definitely affects your cognitive function.
100%.
When people are tired, they do not function properly.
Yeah. And then it also, every single system inside of our body, when we first wake up, our body is stimulated by light. As soon as that light stimulates, it's a neurotransmitter called orexin. As soon as orexin gets stimulated through your pupils, it signals to your brain to turn on all of your clock genes.
Right.
This is your entire system. So this is your hepatic system, so your liver. It's basically your glucadium system, so how your body processes glucose throughout the day. It's your sex hormone signalings. It's for females, it's our follicle stimulating hormone as well gets affected by this. Our adrenals and our thyroid all get affected by this. This is the light switch literally goes on and turns on all these systems.
That's like the stuff Huberman's always pushing about viewing light right away in the morning.
So important in the morning.
And that's important for sleep.
It's
People
important
don't
for
realize.
sleep.
Yeah.
If you are looking to improve your sleep, work on your wake cycle. So like light exposure in the morning, cold showers in the
Sunlight,
morning.
real light.
Real sunlight. And if you don't have real sunlight, so like I have clients who are night shift workers or they're getting up really early and then in the winter months, you can literally buy a Lux, 50,000 to 100,000 Lux on Amazon, a light box, and you can get in front of that.
And it helps.
And it's a massive improvement.
That's
and then
big
at
for this
night-
area, right? Because we're so
Huge.
dark here all the time.
Huge.
Yeah.
And then the other spectrum of that is preventing light at night. So like I tell my clients that are
blue
up,
light blocking, all that
blue
stuff.
light blocking, the lenses have to be red. Blue light blockers at night do not work if they're clear lenses. They have to be red lenses.
Okay, so most of them are bullshit.
Most of them are bullshit, or they work during the day to kind of prevent your blue light exposure to basically keep the health of your eyes more robust.
Yeah.
Versus like blocking the blue light that prevents you from sleeping. So different things there.
Okay.
Slightly different things there. At night, green and blue light prevent melatonin from occurring. So you might fall asleep, but then you wake up in the middle of the night or you wake up really early.
Right.
The further it's kind of like a system, right? So like think of like a big wave. You want the wave of melatonin. You want melatonin suppressed in the morning, light. You want it to come up in the night, suppress the light.
Right.
So I'll even tell my clients who have like kids and like I put my kids to bed and then I have to do the dishes and have to prep my food and have to do this. Cool. Light some candles, turn on some relaxing music, put on your blue blockers, just have it be really low light. You're going to be less stimulated and you're going to go to sleep and stay asleep a lot longer.
Right, so it's like we're so obsessed with this, like you said, grind lifestyle.
Yeah,
and this
it's killing us.
Unnatural lifestyle that
It's
we've
killing
created,
us.
like
And
all
it's making
these,
us fat.
Simulated light, like in
Yeah.
here and everything, and like the best
The
thing you
gym.
can do is the natural stuff.
The gym is a huge, huge thing. When I have clients who work out 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're in front of
Oh, you're blasted.
you're blasted with
yeah.
light and you're super pumped up and then you go home and your sleep quality is normally
Yeah,
shit.
imagine you
if
take a bunch
can't
of
sleep.
pre-workout, you go to a super lit gym with like they usually got music just blasting.
Yeah, you're
And then you
blasting.
go home and you're trying to like get calm to sleep. How? It's like
Even trying to digest food after you've been in that really heightened situation, all of a sudden you go home and you try to eat a meal, your body's in fight or flight mode and it's not digesting food.
Oh, if you're in fight or flight, you don't digest, right?
No, you're
Have
the
you ever-
opposite of rest and digest.
Have you ever heard of that book? And Andrew Huberman had him on the show. Was Robert Sapolsky?
What book was it?
It's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Yes, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers and The Cortisol Connection are like two of the best books to understand cortisol.
Good. So
That's what I
good.
mean when I'm saying like stress is causing society to gain weight, testosterone to go down, estrogen to become dominant, and we can honestly see this. Night shift work is determined to be a carcinogenic as of 7 years ago.
Yeah.
7 years ago, the World Health Organization, which is a international program, deemed night shift work a class 1 carcinogenic. It increases thyroid cancer and breast cancer by 30% in females. Just night shift work. So that should go to show you how important sleep really is when it's actually deemed a carcinogenic to have night shift work.
Right.
That's how detrimental it is to our health.
I believe that. I worked at a factory for like a little bit where I did the overnight shift, and I'm like, how these people are crazy.
Yeah, and you'll see it.
You'll see it. And then they'd get off work and they'd go to the bar and drink it. Like, so they'd make a deal with the bar where it's like they're getting off work in the morning, going to a bar and partying like most people do at night, but they're doing it in the morning because that's their night, you know? And it's like, then they'll go home and sleep after they just got drunk.
Yep.
Imagine that life.
You'll
That cannot be healthy.
It's toxic. And you know what? The body's also really fucking resilient. I mean, I literally...
So some people do it for years and they're okay. Yeah.
I was a drug addict for 15 years, and I'm not just talking about smoking a little bit of weed, like massive drug addict, shooting drugs for a very long time, and like the body's fucking resilient.
And you're very healthy now. So
I'm very healthy now. Like, you can repair a lot of this stuff, so don't feel like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, or...
Well, look at certain rock stars that like went hard, and some of them are like super healthy now in their old age.
Oh yeah, and you know they're like really healthy. They're like, they've got like cryo machines in their house. They're like really big into biohacking. Sometimes you'll see these like interviews with them, and they're doing like, they're really into like taking care of their health. Yeah. And none of that.
They either do that or they die, a lot of them.
Exactly. And they probably lost a lot of friends along the way, and they start to, what happens, I think, is you start to feel it. You hit a certain age where you start to feel yourself going. And I think that tends to scare people a little bit into change.
Yep. And so like you will lose friends, but and just so people know, like that Sapolsky book, the idea of the zebras don't get ulcer thing, it's like so like if a zebra outruns a lion, its stress hormones come in because it has to outrun a lion. So there's all these stress hormones, like you said, it stops digestion.
Acute stress, just one short stress.
Right, so it gives it the energy to outrun the lion if it's getting attacked. But then what happens with those animals, like once the danger's gone, their body goes back to normal. But us as humans, we could be going through like a divorce or some kind of stressful work. So we're like that zebra outrunning the lion just all day for months at a time. We're in that state.
Yeah, chronic stress.
Chronically.
Acute stress is actually really good for us. It's called hormesis, and it's actually really good for longevity. So like hormesis, short stressors,
Would
outrunning
that be
a
like
lion.
a cold shower maybe?
Cold showers are huge with this. Cold showers, occasional HIIT training, fasting, little stresses like that can be really, really good for the body.
Sauna probably is.
Sauna, heat, cold, like I said, like fasting, water fasting, things like that can be really, really good. There's other things as well. But when you are going to work and you're stressed, and you come home and it's stressful, you're sitting in traffic, it's stressful, you're on your phone is never not alerting you of something you need to buy, something you're not paying, something, it's just constant stress, right?
Financial stress, that's
financial stress, work stress, deadlines, you're only as good as your last sale, relationship stress, like all of the stress in the world that we're constantly burdened with. COVID, I mean, holy fucking shit.
That was so stressful.
Chronic stress kills people.
Well, and then people will drink to relieve the stress, but what actually happens with drinking is it causes more stress.
All of it,
It's like a cycle of stress.
Yeah.
You drink to relieve the stress, but then the drinking causes excess stress and actually limits your ability to handle stress.
Yeah, exactly. It's a cycle.
So, I mean, this is all stuff that is prevalent in our modern society right now, and then we wonder why everybody's so fucked up.
Yeah. It's
crazy. So it's like, but you're using all these tools and helping people with this stuff that's like, kind of what you're doing is like mitigating modern life and teaching people how
100%. It's why I take into consideration biofeedback so much in my check-ins with my clients. And a lot of clients, even if they've come from other coaches, they're like, wow, this is a lot of information. I'm like, it's really actually important because your heart rate, your cycle, your digestion, all of these things, your markers, your stress, how hungry you are, all help me understand what I actually need to do to support you this week.
Yeah.
Because you'll start to see it. Like, Your digestion changes with cycle. Heart rate will rest when there's extra stress. We can see people before they even notice they're getting sick, you'll see their heart rate start to change.
Right.
You see these biofeedback markers that really do make a difference. And when a person is chronically stressed, you have different stages of this chronic stress. You have, the first stage, which you are like almost excited. It's high adrenaline, high cortisol. You're like flying high. And then you have, as it goes through, a person starts to feel more depressed, more anxious, low vitality, low movement. Now they're fatigued all the time. So it's kind of like knowing and identifying different forms of stress and knowing how to help that person through said stressors is really important.
Yeah, that's tough. So like, because it's, I'm coming to mind a client I had, which she's not really a client, it's just a friend. So I was helping her for free. But it's like, it was challenging because she wants to make improvements, but then she's a mother, 3 young kids. And then, I'm trying to do like, the regular like coach thing of giving her a diet and please be consistent. If you're consistent, then I can like see what's going on so I can adjust your meals every week and see if we're on the right track, see if our calculations are correct. But then there's like no consistency. And then, so as a coach, I'm like, I don't know what to do other than tell her like, try to be consistent for at least 3 weeks so I can see what's going on.
It's
so like,
hard.
what do you do with someone like that to help?
So honestly, really simple. I'll say something like, what are 4 of your biggest stressors in your life? And I'll have them walk me through that. And so what I do is I implement a lot of like breath work. I'm sure you're a Huberman fan. So like breath work, breathing, different breathing techniques, really, really, really important. I'll have them like calm their body down once in the morning and then once at night. And then I'll have them give me 3 meals a day. Let's just start with 3 meals and this much water a day. Perfect. I need 4 servings of veggies. I give them very basic, tangible things because a lot of
Realistic
people are all
goals.
or nothing. Exactly. I'm like, I need 4
Start with
fistfuls
this.
of veggies.
Start
4
with this.
fistfuls of veggies. I don't even bring out a scale yet. Just start here.
Yep.
4 palms of protein, 4 fistfuls of veggies, 4 servings of fat. Like that's all I want. And don't worry about any.
Not measuring out shit, just not getting so specific.
Yeah.
Start very simple.
Because they'll probably feel better just on that without
100%.
having to worry about all this other stuff.
If you're just drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, and walking 45
eating more
minutes a
veggies,
day.
more protein, more water for most people will make them feel better.
Yeah.
If that's all
So
they
start
can do.
there. That's simple.
And then breath work. So like what are ways that they can calm the body down? And I'll use a lot of things like stretching and yoga versus weight training and cardio. I'll put them walking outside versus on an elliptical because that's going to decrease stress and help regulate blood sugar.
Viewing, all that good
Sunlight
stuff.
viewing,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. A really big thing that I do with my clients too is like I tell them like schedule out connection time with your partner. It's so important. Like schedule time that's just you and him without the kids, without your phones, that you're just like face to face. So take a bath together, sit on the couch together, touch your feet together. Like human touch is so important.
Yeah.
And all of those things, we always joke about it too, but like you co-regulate. If you have a partner, you better hope that that's a partner that has a good emotional balance because they're going to co-regulate your central nervous system. And you co-regulate each other by being around each other and by touching. So like a lot of times in these scenarios, sometimes we'll see the wife or the mom that's kind of like busy and going and the husband's more like chill or whatever, but just connection time for those 2 people, holding hands, cuddling with each other, that in itself can regulate the central nervous system.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense because you see a lot of couples that are like the opposite of that, where you can tell like one of them is just bad for the other one, just stressing them out and like unhealthy and toxic and that's that's not good. So that actually matters a lot, right?
Yeah.
You need restrooms over there.
Sly movements. Yeah.
We didn't see that. No, no, that's like so interesting. It's so funny how much so the approach you have with your clients, that is really necessary because like it's crazy how much everything affects us.
Everything affects us, yeah. Everything affects us. And I think as competitors too, having that, this is where functional bodybuilding I think is really going to start to take a lead. We can become even better as competitors, even leaner. If we really start to understand how the adrenals and stress affects how we look on stage, cortisol dumps, all of that kind of stuff, like we can start working on that stuff when we're 12 weeks out.
Right.
Working on cold showers, working on our stress response, working on a resilience to stress, working on those things. That way, when it's stage day, we're not getting a cortisol dump and looking flat as shit because the reason that happens is You don't have electrolyte balance. Aldosterone is released. You can't get a pump.
Yeah.
You look flat as shit. That's why everyone's like, I looked better the next day.
Isn't that weird? Because especially a lot of them will go out to eat the next day too.
Yeah.
And they probably get a bunch of great calories.
And they
all of a
think
sudden
it's
like,
from that, but most likely it's probably because they don't have the cortisol dump driving down the
from
aldosterone.
the stress of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
actually. So, oh shit, I was going to say something else and I just totally forgot.
It was like, so we've gone down so many different rabbit holes.
Yeah, no, I mean, you find this stuff so fat. You're very passionate about it.
Super passionate about it.
So that's like super cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say like it's so interesting how I feel like a lot of people don't realize how we are like literally made out of the food we eat.
Yeah.
Like our body is actually made out of it. You know what I mean? Like it takes the food and builds our body out of what we're putting into it.
And I think that like the micronutrient thing is really undermined. We always talk about macros, so things that we need large amounts of protein, carbs, fat.
So you're focusing
fiber.
on the micros too.
So micros are so important. Every single process inside of our body, from our estrogen metabolism to our testosterone being made, to our brain function, to our how quickly our muscles recover, they need micronutrients. So zinc, selenium, potassium, magnesium, all of these things. And a lot of times when we have a very small diet, as far as like very low in diversity, we're not getting the amounts that we need. And then there's the RDA's recommendation, and then that is for a non-athlete. So then you add somebody who's training 5 days a week and they need like triple the amount. Because a lot of these water soluble vitamins. So those make a huge
We need
difference.
a lot of vitamins as athletes, huh?
We need a lot more vitamins than most people think. And like I said, a lot of them are water soluble, and a lot of people are like, they buy shitty vitamins and they're like, I don't notice the difference. Or they spend $200 a month on gear and they won't spend $50 a month on a good supplement.
Right.
And that's just kind of like
So
the way
they're
that
not
it is.
helping
Because they can't
themselves.
see it, right? But the reality is that vitamin would actually help.
Yeah.
You can see the gear. Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm swole. But the reality is that vitamin will actually make a difference.
Then you'll see it.
And you will see the difference, but you just have to give it a little bit more time. A lot of times I'll have clients on supplements and like I'll say, oh, we can phase out this product, and they'll stop taking them. Like, can I keep that in? I feel better with that product. And it'll normally be one that's like, the one that I think of right now is a product I use with a lot of clients called MediPure. And it's basically like a powder, liver detox powder, but it's also like a giant multivitamin with very easily absorbed chelated vitamins that can actually be uptaken by the body. And they can feel the difference in that. And the reason why is because methylation is a process that I'm sure some people have heard. It's responsible for 220 processes plus inside of the body. And it's basically the baton getting passed around the body for every process to happen. When we talk about communication in cells, your body needs certain vitamins and minerals for methylation. And when we don't have that, we have anxiety, depression, we have allergy issues, histamine issues, we have sex drive issues. You have so many different things that we just get a an antidepressant for or a dick pill for, and it's like, no, we just needed a good multivitamin. It's mind-blowing.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
that is what. Well, that's like how that's why I have like mixed issues about pharmaceutical, because like I'm super thankful that we have like all these advances in the pharmaceutical industry, but then at the same time, like so many people just fall prey to that without ever like trying these like holistic approaches that probably are going to like actually fix the root, because a lot of times with pharmaceutical stuff, you're kind of just masking the actual root problem.
Yes.
And then you're not really dealing with what's going on.
Yeah. And that's very common, like looping back around to the birth control thing. I know we've like touched on this a couple times, but that's really common with birth control. You'll see somebody who comes in with really bad painful periods or PCOS or fertility issues, and they'll say, or some sort of dysfunction in their cycle, and they're just given birth control and then told that the birth control will regulate their cycle, even though the bleed that you're having on the pill is not a real cycle. It's called a withdrawal bleed.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, here's this peace of mind that now you're having regular cycles. Well, eventually you're going to have to take out that birth control. It's like I always tell my clients with PCOS, your doctor gave you birth control for your PCOS, but what happens when you want to get pregnant?
Right. So you're going to have to get off at some point.
And then you're going to have to deal with all those underlying issues that are normally worse now.
So just what do you tell women to do? Like just basically like stay off of it, but just like use protection. And
it really just depends. You can actually come off of birth control and like run a really good detox, and then you could go back on different types of birth control and then support during that birth control.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, kind of.
Yeah.
So
So
you
like
fix
kind of
the
like
problem.
fix the problem, and then you can do that again. The fertility awareness method is really good. That's where you would take your basal body temperature and you would like not have sex on the days where you have the temperature rising. You can track it in your app, natural cycles. It's going to be the best option.
Work, but it's like
it's a little bit more work, but
you're gonna feel better. Probably.
Like, for every girl listening, like I know that you have had emotions and you're like, I don't know where the fuck that's coming from.
Yeah.
I feel crazy. You'll hear this all the time. I feel crazy when I'm on it. I feel this. I don't know this. It's like anxiety, all this stuff. It's like, what would you rather do? Feel that way or take your temperature in the morning? I mean.
Right, because I get it. Like, the idea is, like, birth control can free up women to not, like, you know, it's like a fear of, like, you know, well, I don't want to just get pregnant out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it kind of, like, in a sense, it's been a thing that's kind of, like, freed women up to have more freedom and feel like they can do more and everything.
Do you feel like you can do more when you have massive anxiety?
But that.
Do you feel like you can do more when you can't lose weight? Do you feel like you can do more when you have super painful periods?
So it's at like what cost?
Chronic migraines
to your health, right?
Yeah, can't lose weight. Do you like? Is that actually a thing? And I wouldn't be saying that if I didn't see this firsthand. I wouldn't just be up here being like, "Oh, birth control's not good," just because what I want to see more babies in the world. Like, no, I get it. I've done a lot of birth control in my life. Like, I've had a risky business in my life.
I like your answer to that.
You know what I mean? It's like it's about what you're really just being realistic with, like what you are willing to do, and you might not be having side effects, and that's okay too. But just you're probably somebody who doesn't have massive chronic stress. You're not drinking all the time. There's all these layers to it. You know, it's kind of like it's not one or the other. It's just being realistic with. So
it's like definitely if you had clients, it's a case by case thing.
Case by case, case by case, and I can see it.
Right. I mean, I think I think I agree with you. I mean, I feel like I've heard that so much that it's just it has a lot of negative effects on women. A lot.
And I think that you know, there's different studies that will show different things. But again, like I feel like we're talking to like physique athletes specifically, probably listen, or people wanting to lose weight in this podcast. But like as a physique athlete, will limit your ability to grow. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, it will limit your ability to grow.
If for competitors, bottom line, you're telling
if you pull the birth control, you will have better results growing. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, you will.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like one of those things where, like, you know, they always say, like, if you put that on men, nobody would ever be on birth control because it's like, we wouldn't take it, you know?
No, because you'd be like, I feel like shit on this. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I'm not going to do this shit. Like, I want to feel good.
And, and it's hard, right? There's a lot of different, like, there's so many layers to, like, the not getting pregnant thing. And, like, I really get it. But it's
kind of like we put it all on women. You know, and it's not really fair, right? It's like
you fucking do. No, I'm just kidding. Like, but I think if you have a conversation with your partner and you're like, there's 4 days a month that we can't have sex, and you really understand your cycle, there's 4 days a month that you can get pregnant. Okay, 4 out of 30, 31 days. It's not giving up that much time.
Right.
Okay, do a couple double days somewhere else and call it no on the 4 days.
You'll be all right.
Keep your peace of mind, keep your sanity, have a better quality of your relationship.
Well, and then like you're saying, so like then their actual like sex drive and their hormones and everything will feel better in general.
A lot of women have a lot lower sex drive on birth control and more vaginal dryness, which creates painful intercourse. And it's like Pavlov's law. If something hurts and doesn't feel good, you're not going to want to do it. So that will decrease that desire. You have
relationship issues because one of you wants something and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, because it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt for like the man necessarily. It hurts more for the female. So that goes through like a whole thing as well, and that's a cause of low estrogen.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is so crazy stuff. Yeah. Well, it is weird. Like it kind of goes back to the alcohol thing. Like what we view as normal in society. You know, like that's just a thing we've come to accept. Like you said, women turn like fucking 14 and they're on birth control.
Yeah.
And nobody thinks anything of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Or same with like all these plastics around. It's like, we don't think of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. So if you take anything from this podcast, there's a lot to take in, but support detoxification through the body. And like a lot of these systems, a lot of this stuff won't necessarily be a big issue for you long term. Or if it is an issue with you, supporting those detox systems right now can definitely like help moving forward to work out of some of these symptoms that you're having.
Right. So there's stuff you can do if you are on birth control to help, right? I mean.
Yeah, supporting detox.
Right. Okay.
Inflammation, low inflammatory diet, that'll all help.
So if you had a client and they wanted to stay on it, you would be like, okay, cool, we can still do this. But they might not get the results that they want. I have
clients that decide they want to stay on birth control, and I will pull it, and then we might go with a different option unless we're not having that. It really depends. I'm not going to say it's one size. I have clients that are on birth control and they are better now than they were before, but a lot of them have made a switch.
Right. So, how did you get on this path of like, so like after your addiction and stuff like that, how did you get so into the fitness field?
That's a really long story. But I was a trainer, and I basically, long story short, I couldn't see the results with my clients just with training alone. And that's when
how
I
you got
became
into
nutrition.
this.
And then just me being naturally who I am, I started just going to more like courses. I started really becoming really interested in functional medicine, and then started doing more courses on that side of things, and then combining like more of the bro science with functional medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, well, before we wrap up, is there any like any last kind of info you want to get out there to people? Because this was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, we did a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm cool with wrapping it up here.
Yeah,
That was super interesting, and yeah, it's just great to see how like passionate you are about it.
Yeah.
Like that was fascinating. I mean, like it's kind of like literally like being sort of like the Huberman podcast, listening to it a little bit.
Yeah.
And just like the way you have the knowledge of all the science and everything. So if anybody has some of these kind of issues, you know, reach out. And
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at Sonia with an I, Spil, and then at Integrative Muscle and Health is our website. I have a podcast called Unamed and Untamed, and then if you literally put my name in Spotify, I have a ton of episodes of lots of podcasts I've done, and then if you put my name in podcasts like on Apple Music, same thing, a lot of podcasts that I've done with other shows as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out to be here, and that was a really awesome episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time.